Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Annalisa and this is the third week of the Blackathon and also the Retro Romance Readathon, which I think I'll actually take part in this week. I've got these two books from like the early 50s and the late 40s, or maybe the reverse of that. I'm almost positive this one is a romance, and I think this one has elements of romance in it, so I'm going to start with this one. And it'll be okay if I don't get to this one, because there's still a lot of books I want to get to for the Blackathon, and I've also been distracted. The second book in the Married to Magic series, which is the one with Deal with the Elf King. I haven't read the first one, but the second one, the cover just really drew me in, because as you can see, the dude has pink wings. In the book they're described as being red, but on the cover they're pink, and they're butterfly wings. And I love a dude with pink butterfly wings. Any kind of butterfly wings, but especially if they're pink. So much so that I actually have written a character who's a dude with pink butterfly wings. And I don't usually talk about how I've used my favorite tropes in my actual writing, but this one I've actually published, so you can read it. But anyway, I got super sucked in by the pink wings and by the arranged marriage and convenience trope. And so far we're getting a lot of fantasy elements, and we only spent a small portion of the first 30% actually dealing with the arranged marriage trope. But yeah, I really like it so far, and it sucked me in very much, and I spent several hours last night reading it, which was partially responsible because I really like the book, and partially because I couldn't sleep because my arm and armpit really hurt because I got Le Booster on Saturday, and I had Le flu-like symptoms on yesterday, and also the painful arm, and it got so bad last night that I couldn't lay on either side because my arm would squish my armpit even when I laid on this side, and that hurt, so I had to lay on my back, which is not how I sleep. So I feel very sorry for myself today, but I did get a lot of reading done last night. But I also have two Blackathon books that I'm working on. How to Find a Princess by Alyssa Cole, and if I actually get around to reading significant portions of them this week, I will update you on them later. So because I'm neurodivergent, I have a pile of coats just on my floor. I possibly also have too many coats, but this is what I woke up to this morning. I've got my beautiful black cat Arwen on my nice nest of coats, especially the very velvety soft black coat that is the same color as her, and she likes that one quite a bit. Yeah, you're so good, Owen. Yeah, you my baby. Hi there, it's Wednesday. I can't decide if there's more noise out here than less, or less. Maybe less because it's not constant. Yesterday was Tuesday, and I didn't film because we tiled that day, and at our project house, and that was exhausting. And then I had low blood sugar from not eating for 6 hours, so I was in a bit of a mood. And then I had anticipatory tiredness because today is my work day and I had to get up at 5:30 to get to work at 7. Now I'm listening to Black Girls Must Die Exhausted while I make dinner, and I also listened to it on my half-hour each way commute. So it was really nice. In the mornings, a bunch of morning shows take over the pop stations I listen to, so it was really nice to have that instead. This is gonna be pepper steak. I'm browning all the vegetables first. So it's still Wednesday, same shirt. And I wanted to talk briefly about Dance with the Fae Prince, because I finished it yesterday, unsurprisingly. It took about, I guess, 36 hours, but it was pretty entrancing. Its comps are ACOTAR and Uprooted. I would say it's more YA than either of those. Those are more new adultish to me, and it's a lot lighter fare than either of those. Those both have dark elements and are also generally a lot deeper. Much less epic fantasy, than Jeffy Kennedy, but about on par with most of Jeffy Kennedy's work for the how much I like the romance. And now I'm reading Deal with the Elf King, which is actually before this in the series, but you can read them separately. And I like it a bit less. The cover especially, but also comparing it to those two other books make it seem like it's a NA. But like I said, it's also more of a YA. And I don't mind that. I just prefer to know it beforehand. So that my expectations are correct. But I'm still generally liking it. Elf King is more of a classic bad boy, which is not with the whole Ice King type of a thing going on, which is not my usual fare unless it's done in the specific way that Spinning Silver does it. I'm also about 40% of the way into How to Find a Princess and liking it quite a bit. One of the characters is on page neurodivergent. No diagnosis actually given, and the other is giving off those vibes, but the author has not come out as being neurodivergent as far as I can find from her websites and stuff. I'm a little concerned about that. We'll have to see how it's handled going forward, and if it's ever stated what kind of neurodivergent the person is. So far, she's acting very autistic, and her internal monologue is very autistic seeming. But I think they're really cute together so far. We have a butch and a relatively femme ladies who are interested in each other, and both of their grandmas are involved, which I think is also very cute. Yeah, so now it'd be good for me to start on my retro romances, so I can try to get one of those done this week, because I have, I guess, 3 days to do that. And I'm 70% or so through Deal with the Elf King. So if I pause that and put into reading How to Find a Princess and My Pride, My Folly, I might get both of those done by the weekend. So it's Thursday, and I have just started reading this morning My Pride, My Folly by Suzanne Butler. And it is set in the 1840s, and it was published in the early 50s, 1950s. So far, it's a lot like your standard historical romance set in the mid-1800s. A little bit older language, maybe, and it is about a 16-year-old who has become engaged to a probably 30-year-old. From the United States, and she's from Denmark, and she's gonna go on a boat to meet him in America, and there's a cute boy / young man on the boat who's like 22. From the synopsis, that's gonna be her actual love interest. So still a bit of an age gap, but I get also from the synopsis that it takes place over several years, so like she'll probably be an adult by the time the romance actually starts. So yeah, this might be fun. I'm also thinking of looking up some of Beverly Jenkins' early work, because I'm sure that she wrote in the 90s and before, so if I can find some of that, it will count for both the Blackathon and the Retro Romance Readathon. So that would be cool for next week. And right now I'm watching a vlog of Fadwas, who is, oh, my computer died. Anyway, they are our leader and our captain of Team Romance, and I really like their content. It's just really enjoyable. Oh, today I'm gonna go grocery shopping with my dad, take my mom some lunch because she is at work as a nurse, and then probably renovate the house some more. We're doing tiling this week, which is backsplash tiling and floor tiling for the bathrooms. And I really like how it looks, and I'm really excited because the tiling part feels kind of artistic, whereas there's a lot of stuff that's been more functional and making it look just barely presentable. I feel like the tile, you get to be more artistic and make aesthetic decisions more than just making a wall look like a wall instead of like some drywall. Hey, so still Thursday, and because I've been thinking about How to Find a Princess and the princess characters' trauma and corresponding coping mechanisms, I want to talk about my feelings on Encanto, because this main character said a line that is very similar to Luisa's, "I'm pretty sure I'm worthless if I can't be of service." The book's case, it's because her mom made her feel very unloved, and so she seeks out love through serving people. In Encanto, it's somewhat that, but coming from the grandmother instead of the mother, because Luisa, Isabella's, and Mirabel's mother is actually pretty nice and non-toxic most of the time, or at least portrayed that way. So I've watched it 3 times. The first time I didn't get super emotionally involved because everybody talked about how it brought up their childhood traumas, and for me it didn't, because I didn't have much of any of the mainly featured toxic family stuff, because my family is not that toxic. Most of the trauma that I have is from school and like more outer social stuff. But I really loved Bruno, even the first time I watched it. And as I watched it more and had watched a bit of commentary and saw people comparing Mirabel's lack of a gift to disability, when I looked at it through that lens, I was like, oh yeah, I can see that, and reminded me of some things. I'm going to talk super generally, but I am going to talk about Bruno, and Bruno's part is about 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through the movie. So if you don't want to hear about that, I'll put a time code to skip to. If you have not watched Encanto and you don't have a particular problem with either musicals or animated stuff, I think you really should watch it, because it is very good edutainment on various types of trauma and toxic family problems, and how talking about your feelings and your experiences is a vital part of healing. I really liked all of those elements. There are a couple parts that I ended up identifying with the most, because I don't have much of a Luisa problem or a Peppa, I have to manage my mood and everybody else's mood all the time problems, and I don't really have a have to be perfect issue. But Abuela has a fair amount of things in common with my grandma on my mom's side, who's dead now, so I can speak freely. We didn't know I was autistic as a kid, but she did not like my autistic traits, and yeah, I was not good enough for her. I needed to fit in better. Like, she got upset about my hair. I don't know if you can see it being parted not straight. Like, it was kind of zigzaggy, because I don't care that much about my hair being perfect, especially the top of my head that most people can't see. And she very much had favoritism towards my brother because she's sexist, and she did that with her sons over her daughter and her daughters-in-law, and she likes her son-in-law better than her daughters-in-law. It's a whole mess. So yeah, I felt very rejected by her, but because I didn't live with her and she just didn't have that much of an influence over my life, I only saw her weekly as opposed to every day, I was able to cut off my emotions to her when she started doing that to me, which was around puberty, which is when more of the autistic traits show up, and you start having the excuse of, oh, you're just a kid, you're weird because you're just a kid, and all kids are weird. So I identified with part of Mirabel's stuff, and I really like her song, especially I identify with the beginning of "Don't be upset or mad at all, don't feel regret or sad at all," about other people in her family succeeding. And that's something I tell myself about other people succeeding in general, because I feel left behind because of my limited energy and such, because of the disability thing. So yeah, I really like her song, and I really like all the songs, but like I identify the most probably with her song. I identify the most with the social rejection, the societal rejection that Bruno has. And every time I watch the movie, I get to enjoy Bruno more and kind of dissect his character more, and I absolutely adore Bruno. And also identify kind of with the way he dissociates by, for one, he has different personalities to address the things he's scared of. Not quite to the degree of DID, but it's similar to that. But also the way he kind of dissociates by making up telenovelas featuring his rats. Yeah, yeah. See all these edge tiles? And this corner, and these little ones that aren't in yet? I cut all of those. So yesterday, Thursday, today's Friday, I did some more driving and baking while listening to Black Girls Must Die Exhausted, and I finished it, and it actually made me cry in the last like 20% twice. So once was when the main character, who is a news anchor, was doing a interview, got me emotional, and then later on she was talking about other emotional stuff, and that got to me. So overall, there are a lot of elements that kind of made me want to give up on this book because of my personal taste, kind of. A large part of the plot is the main character is getting her eggs frozen, and it's super expensive, and dealing with trying to figure out whether to do that or to just get pregnant right now because she's running out of time early because of her stress affecting her ovaries. And I personally don't really think that people should make such a big deal about having biological kids. They also shouldn't turn to adoption to fulfill their infertility problems, because then that leads to problems for the adopted children. And if you're gonna foster kids, then you should do it because you want to help them, not to help yourself. But I personally think you should have kids in general because you want to take care of kids, and not because you think it'll fill a hole in your life. I, of course, have the personal different perspective of not going to be having bio kids because I am both sex and pregnancy repulsed. Not by other pregnant people. The idea of being pregnant myself repulsed me. Specifically the giving birth part. I'm very familiar with people caring a lot about that, but I just have a hard time caring that they care. The book itself was kind of fat phobic in the treatment of one of the main character's fat friends, making health and beauty both equivalent with weight, which is not good. That was mostly the only real questionable thing. But the part that I really liked was her relationship with her grandma. She is part of a interracial family. Her grandma was white, her grandpa on that side was black, and then so her dad was mixed race and her mom was black, and there's actually a fair amount of stuff going on in the family because of that. The white grandma is very anti-racist, and so she and her granddaughter have a good relationship, and she's also very spunky, and she has a very spunky best friend, and they live in a retirement home together, and I really loved all the time that was spent on that. Later on, as time was spent on different things having to do with the news station, I really liked that interview that made me emotional. I really liked that whole story arc. So yeah, it was a really mixed bag for me early on, but then in the end it really paid off, and I liked how the end brought it together, and like the meanings that were expressed. I liked a lot of that stuff. Oh, and I am about 40 pages into My Pride, My Folly, and have discovered that it's probably not actually a romance. It's more like just historical fiction that involves romance, and so I'm worried that it will not have an HEA guaranteed. So I am switching over to Beverly Jenkins' early work for my retro romance, and the one that I'm reading is Indigo, which was about her third book, and it was in the mid to late 90s, and she was actually first published in 94, and I thought that was weird because she is the same age as Nora Roberts, in the same basic genre, and Nora Roberts has been published since 81. But but I discovered just even looking on Wikipedia that even there it says that she had a hard time breaking into the industry because publishers didn't want to publish Black romance in general, but specifically also in the time frames and the atmospheres that she was writing. She wasn't writing about slaves, and she wasn't actually writing about the civil rights movement either, in the 60s specifically. She almost always writes about civil rights, but in the current one I'm reading, the two main characters are Underground Railroad workers. So like it's in the time of slavery, but it's not about being a slave. Happy stories about Black people have been hard to get published in America since forever, basically, because when Black people are allowed to tell their stories at all, a lot of publishers and movie makers want to stick them in a box of trauma corn. Black romances and Black happily ever afters has been difficult to get into the publishing industry, but I'm very glad that Beverly Jenkins started breaking those walls back in the 90s, and so we have much more widely available Black romance today. Although I particularly especially like hers, I think she's really excellent at it, and even as I just started reading this book, her style is still very distinctive. Sometimes when you go back and read an author's early work, it's quite a bit different from their newer stuff, but I really, the same sense of humor is there, and a lot of the same like ways that she makes characters enjoyable and makes those characters easy to connect with. I think that that's very similar. It might be because she had longer time to work on her books and revise them before they actually got published, so like her early works are 14 years more refined possibly than Nora Roberts' earliest works. So yeah, that is the update, and I'm now about 60% done with How to Find a Princess. So hopefully tomorrow I will be able to come back and wrap up both of those.
He'll be listening along with me, and now he's getting into cozies, and I saw you were like, yay!
I was just about to lay down and read for a while because my back's starting to hurt, and there are reading sprints going on with Storm Reads, who is the host of Retro Romance Readathon, which I'm going to read Beverly Jenkins' book right now, so that goes along perfectly. What are you doing, Sam? Were you wild playing in the curtains and now you're kind of falling asleep? Oh, we're very tired. We're very tired. Oh, go back to sleep. Okay, so I'm at 85% of Indigo, and I think I can say that I liked it quite a bit. As I said, I really like Beverly Jenkins' writing style and her sense of humor. This particular book had a lot more sex scenes than a lot of romances that I read, so that was interesting, and the story as a whole is about two Underground Railroad workers who fall in love, so that was cool. One of them is relatively poor, but at least owns her own house and has all sorts of cool secret tunnels in it to do the railroad work, and then the other one is a secretive guy who like has a secret identity and does mostly the actual taking people from place to place rather than sheltering them in his house. So yeah, that was a lot of fun, and as usual, Beverly Jenkins includes a lot of history, and we'll do like paragraphs that like have to do with what's going on currently. We'll explain some history, and I really feel like she does it really seamlessly, and it feels really interesting but also totally organic to the story that the character would be thinking about this background while they're deciding what to do in this situation. So I really like how she incorporates that stuff. How to Find a Princess, I thought most of it would be taking place in the country she's supposed to be the princess of, with like a princess competition, but most of the romance is taking place on their transportation to get there. And we also have a fake marriage trope and an only one bed trope. So those are unexpected things that happen. But I have not always liked Alyssa Cole's work, but I really like this one. This one is very much to my taste, and I really like buff women, so like there are a lot of descriptions about how buff Besnaria is, and I really appreciate those, because a lot of hetero books do not appreciate buff women. Oh, and I did complete a book. I read Rebel Girls Climate Warriors, which is about 25 page-long profiles of different women who have campaigned for or worked for taking care of the planet, and that was really interesting. And one thing that it reinforces that I kind of already knew is that we have the technology and the innovation to create totally biodegradable plastics and to make totally renewable energy and to clean the oceans and blah de blah. It's just, it's not compatible with capitalism because it is not the cheapest option, and it doesn't help transfer money from the poor to the rich. Therefore, until we get rid of a lot of the inherent systems that we have, the people in power are just not going to use those. Next week, I'm thinking of, for the Retro Romance Readathon, after I finished Beverly Jenkins, I've got a novella by Nora Roberts that's part of a bind-up that was published in '84, so I'm going to try to read that. And for the Blackathon, I'm going to try to read either one of the KU books that I've got, or one of the physical books. I might do one of the physical books because they're kind of calling to me. And I've also got a audiobook romance ready to go. So if I have a lot of commuting time or other time that I have to read that, that I feel like an audiobook, I might finish that as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!